Hello and welcome back to Bookish. I thought I'd film an episode, a TBR episode, of things I plan to read in the future. I only have 5 books on my list, and this is a TBR for both July and August. And 5 books may not seem very ambitious to you, but unlike I think a lot of booktubers, I'm a pretty slow reader. I don't necessarily burn through book after book. So it's going to take me a little while, and I'm going back to work again in August, and that's going to slow me down some. But I wanted to share with you the books I plan on reading, and these will be books at some point, hopefully, I'll be reviewing, books that I'll be going over or talking about, as a channel and as the rest of the year progresses. So I want to start off with the authors that I know the least about first. So the first book that I'm on my TBR list is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. I know nothing really other than what's on the cover flap about Celeste Ng. I know this is her second book, and I know there's been a lot of excitement about this book. A lot of people have read it. A lot of booktubers seem to really like it, and it's kind of a book that's a little different, maybe than what I normally read by an author I don't know. So this is my trying something new book, and I'm really looking forward to getting into it and finding another author I really want to read. The second book on my list is Gilead Bay by Marilynne Robinson. This is widely considered to be a modern literary fiction classic. And while I've read some things by Marilynne Robinson before, I've never read anything which, I read things that I liked, but never read anything that really let me think, that this was going to be an author to write one of those well thought of books which ends up being a part of the American literary canon. And so I'm really looking forward to this. I'm sure many of you have already read this book, and so I'm looking forward to getting into this book relatively soon. The third book I want to read is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, which is a book that's really gained popularity. It really made Ishiguro, I think, a widely respected author, an author that lots of people knew more about. It took him that one level beyond A Pale View of Hills or The Remains of the Day, and really kind of, I think, established him as one of the more important authors writing today. I'm not exactly sure I'm comfortable with that phrase, but I don't know how else to put it. He's one of those authors who I think from this point on people are going to be looking to produce, really relevant, powerful work. I read Pale View of Hills. I've read The Remains of the Day, and what I really like about Ishiguro's work is his ability to create an atmosphere, his ability to kind of create these worlds and describe these kind of sometimes closed off, very personal, almost idiosyncratic worlds. And so I'm interested to see if that plays out in this book as well. This book, by the way, was recommended by my son, who read it for a college class. So again, for that reason also, I'm really looking forward to it. The next book I'm going to read, or I plan to read for my TBR, is this book called The Only Story by Julian Barnes. Julian Barnes is one of my favorite authors ever since I read The History of the World in 10.5 chapters. I've been kind of a Julian Barnes fan. I've read Flaubert's Parrot, which I really liked. I read England, which I didn't like as much. Strangely, I have not read A Sense of an Ending, which I believe he won the Booker Prize for relatively recently. I was excited to find this copy of the book and this new novel, relatively new novel, at a independent bookstore locally, and I picked it up, and I'm really kind of looking forward to reading it and kind of getting back into, Barnes as an author, and is this someone who, I want to continue to have strong feelings about her. So I'm looking forward to reading this book and kind of seeing where Barnes has gone later in his career, later in his life as a writer, and seeing if he's been able to avoid, becoming maybe too overly sentimental about life and love and all those kinds of things. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to reading this book as well. And then the last book I plan to read this month, or July and August, is William Trevor's Last Stories. William Trevor was an incredibly prolific short story writer Lots of people consider him to be one of the great short story writers ever. And I really like William Trevor's work. I own way more William Trevor books than I thought I did. When I went to look at the shelf and think about this, I found way more titles by Trevor than I expected. His stories are, I want to say, in a non-creepy way, almost voyeuristic. It's kind of like that feeling you get, or to me, reading his stories is kind of like that feeling you get when you're walking down the street, and it's just starting to get dark, and a light comes on in a neighbor's house or somebody's house down the street, and you look in, and for a minute you glimpse the people inside their home, just that glimpse into their home and their lives for just a second. And to me, that's kind of what William Trevor stories are like. They're oftentimes about small characters, usually not people of incredible importance or even incredible accomplishment, who lead relatively small lives that are sometimes quite desperate, sometimes quite more emotionally fraught than you would expect. And he is a great writer of sentences and a great kind of revealer of things as you go through the story. As full disclosure, I've already actually started reading this book. I've read the first 2 stories and not the least bit disappointed so far. This is actually volume stories which came out, which were published right near the end of his life and have been collected in this series, in this format, I think, for the first time. I think they've all been published before, but this is the first time they've appeared in book form. So I'm really looking forward to getting to that. So let me know what you think about my TBR, maybe based on what you've learned about me or what you've seen from my channel so far, which I grant you isn't much. Maybe give me some suggestions. Let me know what you think about the authors in question. And thank you for watching.